Good afternoon. Welcome to Simple Life Philosophy. Today I'm going to talk about philosophy and your philosophy of life. And when I say philosophy, I'm not talking about what Jean-Paul Sartre or what Immanuel Kant think of the universe and life and everything. On this page, I'm going to keep it more grounded, and I'm going to talk about the philosophy of life, philosophy of living better, the philosophy of dealing with tough circumstances, the philosophy of simplifying your life, and the philosophy of getting more out of life. Personal philosophy might be a better term for it. And to lay the groundwork, so to speak, philosophy, if you go back to my last couple videos here, I've been talking about how philosophy is, I've been talking about sort of the structure of the mind, at least my theory on the structure of the mind. And for me, the structure of the mind is there's a subconscious underneath everything, and that's where a lot of our beliefs come from, and that's kind of the root of our will, our own idea of the world and how we act or behave in the world. And now, at the same time, sort of above that, there's the reactive mind and respondent behavior. So, and that comes from like stimulus and response. I believe in behavioral psychology, they call that a contingency. So like that kind of behavior is not brought from your own will, but rather it's reactive to the world. So something happens out in the world. Let's say you're outside and it starts raining, so you go inside to get out of the rain. Like there was a stimulus in the world, and you responded to it. It elicited a behavior in you. And a pure behaviorist might say that there really is no subconscious and there is no sort of will. There's just this, stimulus is out in the world, and then you respond to them with your behavior. But in my view, I believe that there is a will and there's a subconscious. And in fact, our own ideas, our own beliefs, our own thoughts, our own theory of mind, our own thinking, our own metacognition are actually stimulus that we also respond to. So if you sit around all day thinking, I hate myself, I hate life, the response to that is going to be you're going to produce worse behaviors. But if you affirm yourself throughout the day and think, I like myself, I like life, I'm good at things, you're going to produce better behaviors. And that's because our own mind is actually a stimulus which we respond to. And again, we have a subconscious where we build, and if you go back to my last couple of videos, I talk about this, but the subconscious is where our beliefs lie, our belief structures. And we build those throughout our lives from experiences we have, ideas we have about the world, things we learn, traumatic events which happen to us, or positive events which happen to us. And so throughout your life, you build up a set of beliefs or structures down in your subconscious, and up from that, that's like the resting place or the roots of your will. That's where your will stands. And then your will shoots up through the floor of your subconscious into your conscious mind. And then you decide how to act. You will yourself to acting based on those subconscious belief structures, which you have either planted or have been planted in you by the world. And again, that's coming up from the roots of you. And coming in from the world are these other stimuluses that can also interact with your belief structures, and then they produce respondent behaviors. But some of your behaviors are truly just you. They're from those belief structures, and they're from your idea of yourself, your identity, and you're behaving, you're deciding from your will how to act. And then even yet there, from the will, you can also mold your own subconscious by thinking certain thoughts down into your subconscious, which will change those belief structures. Like I was saying, if you're kind of hating on yourself a lot or disliking yourself a lot, you can actually start to think positive thoughts. And over time, the more you do that, like practice makes perfect, you will eventually start to think better thoughts of yourself. You'll rebuild that groundwork down in your subconscious, and you'll start to behave better up through your will. You will will yourself to behave better. So those thoughts kind of come from what's called the executive function in our mind. And where does philosophy fit into this? Where does personal philosophy fit into this? Now that I've been kind of building this structure of the mind for you throughout the last handful of videos, which I think is helpful. It's just to take a quick tangent on that. For many years in my life, I didn't understand the shape of the mind. And in fact, I think most people do not understand the shape of the mind. Most people are, in a way, a lot of us are kind of victims to the mind and the shape of the mind. And we may just be responding to the belief structures we have or the outer stimulus which are coming at us at all times of the day. Even our own conscious thoughts, some of our own conscious thoughts can sort of beat us up and relive past experiences, which may have not been the best. And so we can kind of become victim to the shape of our own mind. And kind of like they say in the Alcoholics Anonymous, knowing is half the battle. So knowing the shape of your mind is kind of half the battle to understanding how you can start to control your mind again and make better choices. And so this model of the mind, which I've been talking about throughout the last few videos, and if you want to understand it more deeply, you can go back and watch those other videos. Watch the beginning of this video again, where I've just explained it. But that model of the mind is helpful to me. So and just to recap, you have a conscious mind. That's you, that's your conscious mind. That's where you have thoughts, you think about things that are happening to you, you decide how to act. And then you have an unconscious mind, or a subconscious mind, which is kind of below the conscious mind, and you build belief structures down there based on previous experiences that have happened to you. And your will kind of stands on top of those belief structures. And your will is your conscious mind. It's kind of the roots of your conscious mind. And that's where you will your own ideas or thoughts or actions from that come from you. And remember, that will is standing on top of those belief structures. So if your belief structures are really negative because you've had a lot of trauma in your life, your thoughts and your actions are probably going to be a little less stable and a little more negative than they would be if you started working on the belief structures down in your subconscious and making them more positive. You'll get better results, better actions, better thoughts if your subconscious belief structures are formulated to be kinder to you or to be more understanding of the way the world actually is. And then you have the outer world, which is pushing stimulus at you at all times, and you're responding to that. All right, so now that we've kind of talked about the black box of the mind again, how does philosophy fit into this? Okay, your philosophy is kind of like a line between your subconscious and your conscious mind. And everything that goes down into your subconscious or comes up into your mind passes through that line of philosophy, of personal philosophy. All right? It's like a consciously chosen or a sort of it's similar to your belief structures, but it's more consciously chosen, and it's a filter between those two parts of the mind. And so, again, if you've chosen, let's say you've chosen for yourself the philosophy of maybe you're kind of like Sartre, and you think there's no meaning to the world, and there's no meaning to any of it, and you're atheistic, and you think we're just here as a random accident. Okay, so everything that's coming up into your mind, everything that you're deciding to do, everything that is built on your belief structures is going to be coming through this filter of a philosophy of the world has no meaning. So what's the point anyways? And that's going to probably make you a little more morose about life, about the things that happen to you. It's going to make you less resilient in tougher times, because if something tough happens to you, you're not going to have a strong philosophical foundation or filter to filter that through. And it's just going to hit you with, you're just going to hit yourself with, well, there's no meaning in this. So what's it matter anyways? This is just the meaningless universe and it's happening to me. And oppose that to a philosophy where you believe that everything has a meaning. Everything has a meaning. So things that happen to me are meaningful. And my purpose in life is meaningful. My ability to affect things in life is meaningful. And so everything that you do and everything that happens to you is going to pass through that filter of meaning, and you're going to see a significance in the things that happen to you, rather than feeling insignificant in a world that has no meaning. So it matters what your personal philosophy is, because that's going to filter the things that come in from the outside, and it's going to filter the things that come up from your subconscious. And it's going to help you decide how to act based on those given points of information, those data points. And on this topic, and so your philosophy is linked to your strategy. Philosophy is what you think about what happens to you, and your strategy is how you respond. It's your set formulas and patterns for how you're going to respond to something that occurs to you, whether it's coming up from your own subconscious belief structures or it's coming in from outside in the world. So strategy is based on your philosophy, right? So if you have a philosophy of there is no meaning in the world, then what's the point in even trying, right? Your strategy is who cares? If your philosophy is that everything has a meaning and this is important and significant and I should pay attention to it, your strategy might be, I care about this thing happening to me. I'm going to do my best at it. I want to try harder because it's a significant event and I was led here to do this thing. All right? So your personal philosophy will be a starting point for the strategy that you employ through your will in either response or in proactive attempts at acting into the world with your will. And I was talking to a friend about this recently, and he asked me a really interesting question. We were actually talking about like, the Kant version of philosophy, like what is life? What's the meaning? What's the purpose of life? Blah, blah, blah. The big why questions, the big why questions. And he was asking me a few, and we were chatting, and he said to me, Do you believe that everything happens for for a reason? And do you believe that essentially God sort of predetermines everything? And that's a really tricky question. And in a way, I do believe that God has sort of already written the book of life. But at the same and but if you truly believe in pure determinism like that, like everything's already been predetermined, then you may have a tendency to sort of lose that meaning in your philosophy. Like, if everything's already predetermined, why should I even try? What's the point? I'm just going to get the outcome I'm going to get anyway. And so I told him to start thinking, and so I said, I do think that God has kind of predetermined things, but he also knows the choices, or God or it or life or her or whatever you want to call that higher power, already knows the choices that you are going to make. All right? And so it doesn't preclude you from making choices. You can make choices and change your life. Trust me. I mean, just try it. Try deciding to just sit around and smoke cigarettes for the next week and see how good you feel, see how much you get done, see how unhygienic you feel. Or try getting up and taking a walk every morning at 7 a.m. for an hour and see how good you feel. See how much better you feel about life. See how, feel your blood pumping. Feel your joy for life expanding every morning with the sun. And see the difference in those two choices and the outcomes you get. Now, God already knows what you're going to choose. Life already knows. The universe already knows in the grand scheme what your choice is. But you still get to make the choice. All right? So it's kind of like a hyper thing, like a hyper philosophical thing that is very hard to wrap your mind around. And the movie The Matrix actually kind of talks about this with the Oracle, and she kind of already knows the choices that Neo is going to make when he goes to visit her. If you've ever seen that movie. If you haven't, you should watch it. It's a great movie. But anyway, back to philosophy and what. So we were talking about philosophy, the big why questions, and he asked me, do you think everything's already kind of predetermined? And I gave him that answer. But then I said, but I want you to understand something, that philosophy, personal philosophy, should be useful. Your personal philosophy should be useful to you. It should produce better results for you by having it. If you have a personal philosophy that's harming your ability to produce better results, like you don't believe there's any meaning in life, so what's the point? Or you believe that everything's already predetermined, so why even try? Because you're just going to get the same outcome. Then you have, in a way, you are kind of losing. You don't have a useful philosophy. Your philosophy is actually going to harm you in the long run. So, sorry, my microphone is getting ready to die, so I'll probably wrap it up here pretty quickly just so we don't do that. But the point is, your philosophy should be useful to you because it's going to undergird and it's going to filter everything that happens to you, and it's going to inform your strategy for life. So you have to ask yourself, what are my philosophies? Or another word for this is ideology. What is my ideology? What is my philosophy about life? And is it helpful? Is it making me a better person? Is it helping me make better choices and decisions? And if the answer is no, even if in the back of your mind you're absolutely convinced that your philosophy is right, okay, keep that philosophy in the back of your mind. Who cares? But put a new philosophy into the forefront of your mind that is more useful to you so that you can get better results and make better choices on a daily basis. And maybe as you make those better choices and you get better results back, you might start to reconsider that, hey, maybe that philosophy that I threw in the back of my mind that I've been carrying in my backpack, maybe it's not as useful as I thought. Maybe it's not as correct as I thought. Maybe I should just dump it off and I should just keep my new positive philosophy, because that will help me get better results in the long run. And all right, I've talked enough here. Your philosophy codes your strategy for life, and it filters everything that happens to you. And your philosophy should be useful for making good choices. I hope that all makes sense. Tell me down in the comments what your ideas about the philosophy of life are. How your philosophy of life shapes you and the world around you and your choices. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Be good. Take care of yourself. And God bless.